One of the world's largest drug companies is raising their prices in the middle of a pandemic, despite receiving hundreds of millions of dollars from the taxpayer in order to in order to develop a coronavirus vaccine. So now the LA Times is writing that AstraZeneca, who received large amounts of taxpayer money, announced not just one set of price hikes back at the beginning of the year in 2020, but two, according to analysis of drug pricing data by the Times and 46 Brooklyn Research. So now AstraZeneca hiked prices on some of its biggest selling medicines by up to about 6% this year, following, of course, trends such as last year raising the prices as well in a similar fashion, and the year before, raising prices at much higher rates than inflation, which is currently around 1%, according to the analysis. So now it raised it once by 6% and then raised it again even more by about, I believe, 3 to 4%. So now that second round of increases, by the way, came after it secured about $1.2 billion from the U.S. government in order to develop a vaccine for coronavirus. Now, that company, by the way, after receiving this money, was also reporting more than $3.6 billion in operating profits in the first half of 2020. That's not even full 2020, right? That is the first half, because 2020 is obviously not over. But we're going to see possibly a profit of even more than $6 billion this year, and yet we, the taxpayer, are giving money to this company to develop a vaccine that they are going to turn around and sell right back to us. That's a big problem, okay? They're making bank. And again, this is at a time where millions are out of work and have lost their health insurance, and still they are raising prices on us and taking our money in funding. Now, look, I know Republicans, conservatives love to complain about double taxation, right? Which isn't really a thing, but in this case, you could argue that it's a lot like one, a lot like the concept. Our money is going to, again, go to these companies for the research and development, so they say, and then they turn around and they're going to charge us hundreds of dollars for a drug that takes a fraction of that to produce. And a lot of the research, by the way, for the drugs happens in universities, which are, again, publicly funded. It's highway robbery. Your money or your life. And in many cases, it's a literal, right? Because you most likely will need that drug to survive or at least function normally in society. And they know this. They know it, but they don't care about you. They want the blood money, and that's what it is. They know you have to have it. Then they know that you'll find a way to pay, or else you die. That's it. Now they're saying, oh no, the price increases. It's all to help people to afford drugs. Because, sometimes we give it away for free for people who are struggling. So you're going to raise prices on everyone else instead of dipping into your gigantic profit margin to make sure that people can afford those drugs. No, this is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous. But for them, again, understand, they don't care if you die, right? That if you can't afford a drug. Because there is no shortage of customers for big pharmaceutical companies, and there's no shortage of taxpayer money. Peter Maybardik, who oversees drug policy for the nonprofit watchdog group Public Citizen, said this, quote, "Pharma corporations are sophisticated political actors that understand that this is a risky time to be seen increasing prices, and yet these corporations are addicted to price increases." So, there's a certain truth to that, right? Again, the government has given about $10 billion to different companies in order to encourage them to create a vaccine for COVID-19. Because, of course, apparently they have to be, compelled with funding in order to develop a vaccine that they, again, will turn around and sell to the consumer. We have no promises that this vaccine will be freely available. In fact, both presidential candidates have said it's not going to be free, but quote unquote affordable. Affordable. Right. No, it's going to cost the average person a lot of money. I mean, it's ridiculous. What the hell was that $10 billion for if not to pay for the vaccine for the American people? For the research and development, right? You think that $1.2 billion that went to AstraZeneca would actually, cover that. Instead, it probably does cover it, but they're still going to try to make bank all over it. And that's the thing. That's the problem here. I mean, as far as the administration is concerned as well, what's Donald Trump done about it? I mean, he's promised to lower prices 4 years ago. Now, the companies also promised to lower prices. Instead, we've seen increasing prices. It's increasing, ever increasing. And so those promises mean absolutely nothing. And by the way, before the pandemic hit, 1 in 5 households reported that they last year were unable to pay for the medicine that a doctor had prescribed because of the cost. So that's 1 in 5, 20%. Now, with the pandemic, it's probably even larger. And again, at the start of this year, most major pharmaceutical companies had continued to hike prices at rates far exceeding inflation. I mean, several of the world's biggest drug makers had announced hikes of 5 to 6 to even 9% on a host of popular medicines, according to an analysis which looked at list prices by the 15 largest drug companies using the gold standard drug database, which includes pricing and clinical information on tens of thousands of medications. And so that leads me to to basically spelling it out. The other virus is greed. That's what it is. We've got coronavirus, which is new, but the virus that's always been here in our system has been the greed of these companies and CEOs. The way to combat that is to have a government with the courage to take on the pharmaceutical industry and who doesn't take their dirty money. And it can be done. Countries in Europe, Asia, and elsewhere have aggressively tried to control the cost of medications, either through government price setting or indirectly through price negotiations, which is what we're talking about here, right? So Bernie Sanders, the so-called, self-avowed socialist, radical socialist, his radical idea was letting Medicare negotiate drug prices with companies. That's it. No, not setting prices through, price controls, right? But no, just allowing Medicare to use their leverage that they have by being Medicare and, to be able to negotiate for cheaper drug prices. Because there's no reason why a vial of insulin should be $300 when it costs less than $10 to make. And even probably less so. But I'm not sure on the exact pricing. It could be even less than $1 to make, to produce. And so it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. It can be done. We can control the prices of drugs if we actually had a government that's willing to do so. And by the way, those companies who are successful at doing this, they have national healthcare services. Everybody's covered, and they can use that leverage to negotiate, and they end up saving money. We spend twice as much as other countries, as every other country, on healthcare, and we can't even cover half or, even the majority of our population. It's ridiculous. And it's because our government is corrupt. It's so corrupt and so captured by special interests that they just won't do it. And of course, we end up having a large amount of people suffer. And at the same time, these companies get fabulously wealthy. AstraZeneca reported that its revenues for the first half of the year were up 14%, and that operating profits surged more than 20% from the first 6 months of 2019, according to its report. Pascal Soriot, company's chief executive, at the time hailed this as a strong performance and as a, quote, another step towards profitability and cash generation. And yet, even with that, they raise prices. And the final thing is here, the way that they do it, they rub it in their face. We see that it's happening. We know that it's happening. And there have been numerous calls by presidential candidates to do something about it, and yet they still never do it. In one nationwide survey earlier this year, 9 in 10 Americans said that they were concerned that the pharmaceutical industry would take advantage of the current pandemic to increase prices, and that's exactly what happened. And yet nobody's doing anything about it. Donald Trump said, hey, I'm going to do something about it, and he didn't. They knew Donald Trump wasn't going to lower prices. They know Joe Biden is not going to do anything to lower prices. The only thing that they were concerned about was Bernie Sanders. And they helped Joe Biden crush him with a flurry of ads against single payer and talking points. One of the biggest groups, by the way, is the Partnership for America's Healthcare Future, right? That is a dark money lobbyist group made up of hospital, health insurance, and pharmaceutical lobbyists. And they were committed, and still are, to stopping single-payer healthcare or expanding Medicare or creating Medicare for all. And, of course, they're also against the public option because they don't want any sort of change in our healthcare system, because if it does change and prices go down, they stand to lose out. They can't get away with price gouging the American people anymore. So don't expect anyone to fix this. Joe Biden's not going to fix it. Donald Trump sure as hell isn't going to fix it. The only way to really fix it, to ensure that we can actually fix this broken system, is to get money out of politics. You got to get the money out. You got to get the corruption out. And we've got to elect people who don't take corporate money, who don't take dark money from pharmaceutical or any lobbyists. We've got to end this corruption because turns out our lives literally depend on it.